It is so good to have you with us, pilgrims. We have a really special treat again during this virtual pilgrimage this Lent. Matt Maher has agreed to join us not only for an interview, but to share with us the beautiful song that he's recently released. I don't know, we'll find out now, when he actually recorded the song and what inspired him to write the song called The In-Between. I think most of us have seen the official music video. And so I'm excited to welcome here with us on our virtual pilgrimage of freedom. Hello, Matt.
Hey, Kathleen, how are you?
It's really good to see you. Thank you so much for your time and for being here with everyone. Our virtual pilgrims are big fans of yours, so we're happy to have you again.
Yeah, happy to be here.
So, gosh, Lent has about ready to begin, and we're going to be transmitting this particular interview during Lent. And people have been listening to your song, The In-Between. I think it was released, what was it? How many months ago was that?
Oh, I think it was, the song was released in, I want to say November, around the debut of the first 2 episodes of season 3.
Yes, and that's the
Yeah.
connection people make so strongly because it's such it's a powerful music video that you made with Mary Magdalene from The Chosen. I mean, and everyone who's seen the very first episode from season 1 knows exactly, at least I think, knows exactly where it was inspired from. Is that what inspired you to write it, or how did it come about?
Yeah, so the song was written in 2021. In January of 2021, I was home in Nashville. I was doing a lot of songwriting, and I'd gotten together with a songwriter that I hadn't written with before. We had a lot of mutual friends, and we were just sort of talking. And he said, "Have you watched that show, The Chosen, yet?" I said, "No, you're like the second person that's in less than a week, actually the third person, and has said I would need to watch it." So, but I looked on YouTube, and because he said I'd love to write a song based on this scene. There's a scene in the second episode of the show where Mary Magdalene has this conversation with Nicodemus, and he told me the line that she says, "If I was one way and now I'm completely different, and the thing that happened in between was him." And
Yes.
it you know, it spoke to me immediately without even having seen the show. And so I went and looked up really quickly the described scene and just watched just the scene. And I think it was just this, there was an of it. Can you hear me okay? I put
We
my
got you
phone on,
right back.
sorry. I put my phone on, do not disturb, and something. So, but that
No
was my
worries.
wife. So,
Oh.
yeah. So anyways, we watched the scene, hadn't seen the full show, but I just connected with it as a believer. I just connected with that conversation and that moment, and just I sort of immediately heard a song in my head. And so myself and this other writer, Judah Akers, we finished the song, made a demo that day, and about 2 months later was the first time I ever talked on the phone with the director of The Chosen, Dallas Jenkins, and we were sort of talking about just my music in general. He was a big fan. I was talking to him about, you know, have you had a lot of interaction with artists yet? It just feels like the show is so inspiring to people. And it could really, there could be like really cool opportunities to collaborate with creative people. And so I sent him the demo just as a way of affirming him and saying, "Thanks for making this show. It's inspiring songwriters."
No, that's amazing. Yeah.
And what I didn't know is that was the first scene they ever wrote for the show. So immediately there was this sense of connection with the song. And fast forward a year, and all of a sudden they were like, "Hey, we want to make a music video for it." I said, "Okay, great." So I just said, "You got your work cut out for you if you're going to try to make me look as cool as the show." But but we did it. So in July of last year, flew out to just outside of Dallas to where season 1 was filmed, and then flew to Utah, where the Goshen set is. You know, the sort of kind of short scale version of Jerusalem. And we filmed all the content for the video. The last scene of me under the tree where Nathaniel is
Yes.
actually, there were tons of fire ants there, and at one point we had to stop the shoot because I had a fire ant. I had ants in my pants, basically, is what happened. So I
That's
I had to get rid of those. So I'd say I suffered for the making of this video.
Oh yeah, and those bites last for quite some time. That's really painful.
It's all good, all for the glory of God.
I was gonna say you can never have love without pain, so it's a perfect combination there. So.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah. So can I just ask, this is not
Yeah.
completely related to the song, but with the story, were you also instrumental in putting together, or sort of maybe the impulse of the idea of bringing the artists together for their Christmas, the couple of Christmas specials they've done? Or was that...
No. So the Christmas show was really their idea, and what happened was that I first became aware that the show was a fan of, that the director of the show was a fan of my music, was through the Christmas specials. So the first Christmas specials, a fellow friend who is also a Catholic said, "Hey, you need to meet my friend Matt Maher. He's a Catholic," and he's like, "You know Matt Maher? I absolutely love his music." So we kind of hit it off, and I did a song on the first Christmas special, and then they invited me to come back and do one for the second Christmas special, which then, debuted in theaters, and that's, it started to sort of further the friendship in a way.
Well, those songs are just wonderful. So I listen to them a lot. They're some of my favorites for Christmas. So really nicely done. It's a perfect, it's amazing how friendships in the Lord can bear so much fruit, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Well, I wanted to ask you then, as you had alluded to, that moment when you saw that scene, I think a lot of us, it's true, it was in the second episode, not the first, but when we watched that scene, a lot of us were like, oh my gosh, I could say exactly the same thing. And Dallas and his team, of course, the actress and Jesus, they did it in such a way that speaks to our hearts. Can you tell us a little bit about, or some of the details, if you would like, of your own in-between, of how he was the thing that happened between the way you were and the way that you are and will be?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I think the thing about the Christian life and the process of conversion is it really is a lifetime process. But there are these moments that are like kind of watershed moments where a spark happens, or you can sense there's a change. And for me, it was the weekend of my 21st birthday, and I just moved to Arizona, and I was on a youth retreat doing the music, and didn't really know what I was doing. And but in my mind, I thought I was like, oh, this is kind of like a late night show like David Letterman, and I'm Paul Schaefer. So that was that in my mindset, that's what I was thinking. And that part was great, but then there was this element of, like, singing worship music, and I would kind of fumble through it. And but I really enjoyed it. But there was this thing that happened, that there was a skit. It was kind of like a Young Life skit. It's like a youth ministry skit about a teenager whose heart gets kind of mangled by life, and the heart is a grapefruit. And then Jesus shows up. The guy's wearing an alb that's way too short, and you can see his high top sneakers, and the devil has a pinstripe suit on, and it's and Total Eclipse of the Heart by Bonnie Tyler is playing, and
oh my gosh,
turn around. And so I'm watching this going, what is happening right now? But there was this moment where the guy who's playing Jesus pulls a new grapefruit out of his sleeve, a new heart. And it was, I watched it, and that was immediately, I sensed the Lord saying, that's what I'm trying to do for you. That's what I want to do for you. I want to give you a new heart.
Oh, wow.
And I burst into tears. And it was, I was a smoker for, I've been quit for almost 20 years now. And I ran outside and chain smoked like 3 cigarettes, because I was like, like,
oh my gosh.
Well, I was like, I don't know what's happening to me. I'm trying to process all of this stuff, and I don't have words. And so it's like, that's sometimes tears come when we don't have words.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, so that was, I think that was one of the first kind of in between moments, that whole weekend. And it's like every time I would go to sing a song about God, I would just start crying.
Wow.
So, I would say like that's definitely like one of those watershed moments for sure.
Oh, that's amazing. We were just with the team filming in Egypt because, of course, our virtual pilgrimage this year is called A Pilgrimage of Freedom. And it's actually called Exodus. Virtual Pilgrimage of Freedom is the subtitle. And so we had the chance to walk through the places where, the slaves or the, forced laborers in Egypt, where they worked, what they built, the obelisks, the temples, the homes, all of that stuff, and then follow their route from Egypt into, crossing the Red Sea. We followed the traditional route because there's, no one knows exactly where their footsteps were, but we followed that through the Red Sea. That's really a total watershed moment, right? And then they go into the Sinai. We went down to, the base of Sinai and climbed up. And then from there, we went further into, the deserts of southern Israel and Jordan and made our way up to Mount Nebo. And of course, that will be toward the end of Lent, showing those episodes when they actually cross into the promised land. And so the striking part about this, and we'll go through that in our pilgrimage, is how there is a moment where you recognize that it's the Lord who's doing this work, but there's so much to do afterwards, and how he has to kind of tutor us, not only to go up a mountain, but also to follow his guidance, his laws, and fulfilled in Jesus' Beatitudes. And so I don't know if you could share something about that, who you are now and then ever will be sort of moment, and how the Lord is sort of tutoring you. I don't know what helps you the most in that pathway as you make your way to the promised land.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes uh, the spiritual journey, part of how it deepens is that I think when you're younger, you think it's mostly just about correcting surface behavior.
Hmm.
But when you really look at the life of the saints, and you start to see the deeper periods of conversion in their life, it has much more to do with in the interior life, and on a deeper level in identity. And in fact, if your faith becomes primarily just about changing a bunch of stuff on the surface and never really addressing the heart, like the point of conforming our lives, and even like the process of Lent and fasting,
Mm-hmm.
it's to break the physical aspect of who you are as a human, and so that your soul gets disturbed, and you're actually able then to allow the Lord to do a deeper work in your soul.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, like real transformation comes from the inside out, but sometimes uh, we can shock the outside, uh, which I think is what fasting can do. I
Sure.
think for me, like when I look back on, like, who I was and who I'll forever be. um I think who I'll forever be is understanding that I'm a child of God, made in his image and likeness. And I've been called into a family by virtue of my baptism.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that, when the church says that's an indelible mark on your soul, it can't get taken away anymore. Um, which is just, it's beautiful. There's so much hope in it, I think.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah, and so like I think for me, when I think about who I was and what I've been delivered from, um, I would say that uh, for the biggest thing, like most people, I just struggled with having a real sense of identity of like, who am I?
Right.
And you start to try to find your identity in a lot of different things. So for me, it's like, is my identity in what I do, the things that I do, and
Hmm.
taking pride in the things that I do. So even before I had a conversion and came back to my faith, and went to the sacrament of reconciliation for the first time in like 8 years, um, my identity was in music, playing music, but a lot of it was just because I was insecure about other areas of my life. And that was the one area that I felt confident in. So it's like, oh, well, I'll let my identity be in music because that's where I feel good about myself.
Right.
And then what happens is you become a practicing Catholic again, and now you're in ministry, and your identity is still in the fact that you're good at music. And it's actually, you realize at a certain point, you actually have to surrender that and allow your identity just to be simply formed in that God loves you completely, just the way you are, and your value to him is not in your usefulness.
Right. Oh, that's a big temptation. Oh, that's a big temptation.
Big temptation, right? So for me, I got so focused on ministry. Like, I was a kid in high school and college who was involved in a million extracurricular activities, and there was basically two fundamental reasons. Number one, I was avoiding some of the problems that were happening in my family, and I didn't know how to deal with them. And then number two, I was lonely, and I was afraid of being alone. And so and some of us are just grown adults running around who are just simply afraid of being alone. But that's the truth of our faith, and the tradition of our faith is that because of the incarnation, because of the life of Jesus, because of his passion, death, and resurrection, because of his ascension, because of the descent of the Holy Spirit and the birth of the church, because of the sacramental life of the church, you are never alone. And you can be lonely and also understand that you're never alone, because loneliness is a temporary condition. When you understand that you're never alone, you can navigate the shadow of loneliness and walk through it with Jesus.
Well, it's interesting because there's at one point where we were climbing up Mount Sinai, and there's so much to read in Exodus. And then, of course, it's reflected a little bit in Deuteronomy. But afterwards, of course, because he's, passing it on as they go in through the desert and are remembering those in-between moments, right? Like what happened to us and what the Lord is asking us to do. Well, Moses goes up that mountain, and he says he actually intercedes for the people who had just committed a terrible, idolatry with the golden calf. And then he says, excuse me. He says, don't leave us alone. And the Lord actually responds to him, I will not leave you alone. I will be with you. I will accompany you. And of course, the tabernacle, it goes with them through the desert and into the promised land. And whenever they're aware of his presence, which comes just when they pronounce his name, the name of the Lord, it changes everything. It changes everything. So yeah, they're not lonely, but they still had to go through the desert experience though.
I mean, 100%. And for me, I look back now, it was Ash Wednesday, 2006 was the day I quit smoking at the Abbey of Gethsemane.
Oh, that's a great place.
Yeah, well, it's a desert. When the Trappists came to America, they said, "What's the desert of the United States?" And someone said, "The middle of Kentucky." Yeah. Basically, where all the bourbon is made, that's the desert.
That's hilarious.
But to your point, for me, that whole experience of navigating that addiction, and walking through it, and sort of giving God the freedom to show me, there was two things. I had to get free of the chemical dependence, and that actually only takes, with smoking, I think it's 3 days.
Oh, wow. I didn't know it was fast.
Yeah, it's fat. 98% of it, 99% of it is all in your head and your heart.
Wow.
Some of it is the physiology of your brain, and nicotine does things faster than and your brain, your body's, it's a whole thing. But a lot of it is just the nature of I'm leaning on this thing. I'm using this as a reward system. It's a friend. It accompanies me. It helps me distance myself from people when I want time by myself. I go to it when I'm stressed. I go to it after a meal, to kind of savor the moment. There was all these aspects to it that in my prayer life, then I had to start going to Jesus, say, okay, I need you to meet with me in all of these places that I used to meet with a cigarette with. And that sounds, some people will go well, that sounds overly spiritual. And I'm a songwriter. What do you want? That's just who I am. Yeah, I mean, yeah. So like for me, it was this thing of inviting God into those spaces of loneliness,
Hmm.
so that um, I could just meet with him and
Amazing.
talk to him and listen. And he actually has thoughts about my life and the direction of it and the way I'm loving the people around me. Um, and so often prayer just becomes we go and read a laundry list of to-do
Yeah.
items for the Lord, uh, instead of just asking him, well, what do you think?
Well, they actually say it's said in the Old Testament, I will take her into the desert and speak to her heart, right? So she will love me as in the days when she first came out of Egypt. And really, if you think about the 10 Commandments, this whole covenantal relationship that the Lord invites us into, it can be just trying to change external things where he's really saying, meet me somewhere so I can change your heart and I can have a relationship with you and speak to you. So I think, that's exactly probably what your experience was in that way.
Oh, I mean, 100%. It was definitely that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's amazing. Well, I don't know if you've had any. It's kind of a weird question, but since we are focused on the Ten Commandments and really the third part of the Catechism in this particular virtual pilgrimage, I don't know if you have any experience either with how the Ten Commandments or the fulfillment in the Beatitudes, of course, which goes straight to the heart, how that has helped you, or a group of people that has helped you on your way, with that as a reference point. Is there anything you could say to that? Or maybe even just the desert experience, like you've already addressed. I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's funny that Hosea quote of "I will allure her in the desert and speak to her heart." That was one of the first things of Scripture. Excuse me. That when I read when I moved to Arizona in 1995, and I read that, it like it, it there's these moments when you hear a scripture and you go, "Oh, this is for me. This is for right now." And this
Hmm.
is speaking to my life, and that's like was very every time I would hear that scripture it would it would repetitively come up. Like the first 3 years I lived in Arizona, I moved, and it
Wow.
was sort of, yeah, it was just this constant reminder of like, yeah, this is why you're here. You just didn't come
Speak to
here
the
because
heart.
you're, yeah, you didn't come here. It's not this wasn't just all circumstance. Like in the world of divine providence, there's no such thing as a coincidence, right? So
That's right.
um I think when I think about those deserts, I mean, I think like what I said, the process of kind of walking back from the Egypt of nicotine, of addiction in that way, and walking towards freedom was definitely a significant moment. I was diagnosed, well, prior to my parents divorcing. There was a brief moment where I I had to get tested for HIV, and the reason is I'm a hemophiliac. I have a blood
Ah,
clotting
sure,
disorder,
sure.
and sort of unbeknownst to me, at some point in my childhood, I was infected with hepatitis C, and
Wow.
from a blood transfusion. And so the process by which I was first told about it, looking back on it, was not clear. And subsequently, I didn't really find out that I definitely had the virus until I was around 26 years old. And I ended
Oh
up
my gosh.
doing, I did a form of like immune suppressing therapy that's called interferon. And basically, it's similar to chemotherapy. You take a drug that sort of eradicates your immune system, and then you take another drug which is trying to help your body fight a virus. And
Yeah.
so the doctor that prescribed the treatment um, did an unorthodox approach, in the sense that we tried it for 6 months, and it was kind of working, but it wasn't statistically as effective it was supposed to be. And instead of taking me off it, he actually just increased the dose.
Oh gosh.
And I ended up taking it for almost 2 years, and I lost probably 50 pounds. It's kind of what accelerated my hair turning gray. and
But
I
we
became
really like the style, though. I do have to say,
yeah,
the long hair
yeah,
looks
yeah,
awesome.
yeah. Hey, it doesn't say how you get a crown of glory, so I'm just grateful for
Right.
that. I'm grateful that I have a crown.
It's
Uh,
awesome.
but
So,
but in the process of that, I was anemic. I was very, very sick. I would basically inject myself once a week with drugs that gave me the flu for,
wow.
so it was it kind of that there was a span of about 2 years of my life that is in some ways a bit of a blur. I don't really remember like huge chunks of it. And
Mhm.
but I wrote Your Grace Is Enough during that time.
Ah,
And
amazing.
and yeah, and some of it was I was young enough that I just had enough energy, I think. And I was very fortunate to be surrounded in a really great community of people who all were, trying to love Jesus as best as they could, and they were definite examples for me. There is also a lot about it that, looking back, you're like, I definitely could have navigated some of this a lot better. Um,
Mm.
yeah, and so that was a really, really, it was a difficult season to walk through. And then I got done with the treatment, and really there was no cure. And
Oh,
it
yeah.
the yeah, the doctor I had ended up leaving this specialist office, and a new nurse practitioner came in, and she said, you should quit taking this and come back in 10 years, and I promise you there
Oh,
will be a cure. And there was. 10
oh,
years,
wow. Yeah.
almost to the day, I started a new treatment, and I was cured in 4 months.
Incredible.
Yeah.
It's almost like that 40 years in the desert, kind of wandering until, you can actually see the promised land, cross over the
Yeah.
Jordan. There you are.
Yeah.
Yeah,
100%.
but that experience marks you. It almost makes you, in a certain sense, and I'm not going to, it sounds a little exaggerated, but it almost makes you sort of a desert father in a way. We're going to go through and see some of the caves where some of the desert fathers lived, and they did live a lot of suffering and detachment, and they had to rely just on God. And that sounds kind of like what you did.
I I I I did my best, which you know, like I think that's what I would say, is that I think uh, I was very fortunate to be in the community that I was in with
Yeah,
people,
that's just
and it
key. Yeah.
it, it really, really, really helped a lot, and it's interesting because, like, one of the prayers that has kind of followed me since my time in Arizona, that I think about a lot, is the Prayer of Abandonment by Charles de Foucault,
Oh,
um, which
beautiful.
is which is in his life, in a way, of somebody who kind of wanted to be a Blessed Charles de Foucault wanted to be a desert father in a way, but
He
he even
did.
had, in some ways, he had to surrender even that ambition in his life. And then, now that his journals were found, and I always say, it's the tough thing about being a Catholic is, typically you don't really get celebrated until a while after you die.
Yeah.
It's just how it
Yeah,
is.
sure. Oh, that's so
Which
funny.
is, it's fine. At this point, I'd be suspect of anything else.
Right, right. So yeah, I haven't read those notebooks, but we do have a couple of places actually where you can stay, where he did retreats when he came through this part of the world. So it's just fascinating. He is quite a fabulous saint. So it's really neat. Blessed, but certainly a
Yes.
saintly man, just like we're all called to be the holy people, the priestly people, as the Lord called the chosen people. So very exciting.
Yeah.
So no, thank you, Matt, for sharing so much of your own journey. And what happened in between certainly was the Lord, the community that he gifted you with, his grace. And we just give thanks to God for your ministry, and
Thank you.
the heart that you have. You can tell, just filled with the Lord. What a blessing, actually. And also delighted, of course, the fans who are watching the virtual pilgrimage. I would say 95%, if not more, are certainly fans of The Chosen. And so that's why we're really thankful that we can use your song also for this pilgrimage. And We'll also send people to the link of the official music video, of course, that you did, and all the other work that you're doing. So I hope you have a wonderful Lent and a very blessed Easter. And you're certainly welcome to follow us here on nigella.org for our virtual pilgrimage.
Thank you so much.
Well, please pray for us and for all of our pilgrims, and we will pray for you and your family and your wonderful work. All right?
All right, will do.
All right. God bless you, Matt.
God bless you. Thank you.